Thank you very much, Ryan. Really appreciate that generous introduction. And this is Principles for a Cloud-Native Platform. Just to introduce myself a little bit, my name is Everett Toews. I know last name looks nothing like it sounds. I get all kinds of funny pronunciations and misspellings. It's all good. Toews is my handle kind of on all the things. And as Ryan mentioned, I'm a specialist director at Deloitte. And I've been with them for going on 5 years now, really ever since I got to New Zealand. And I'm on the platform and cloud engineering team, affectionately known as PACE, an absolutely great group of people to work with. It's really why I've been with Deloitte for so long. Just a really great team, really great people doing really excellent work. We do basically cloud, code, and containers, like Ryan said. And I'd encourage you to come visit us. We have lots of job positions open, and we're actively hiring. So for the first half of my career, you couldn't see me back there, but when Ryan asked, who started out doing development, I raised my hand. For about the first half of my career, the first 10 years-ish of my career, I was a developer. I like to say I'm a reformed developer now. And for the past 10 years or so, I've been building clouds and platforms, and have been really invested in it. And I like to teach what I learn along the way. And I come to you here in New Zealand via Canada, hence the goofy accent. So I know we've got not a whole lot of time, so let's crack into it. And what I want to do here is kind of offer up a definition for cloud-native platform. And really, there's probably nothing too radical in what I'm introducing here. That's not the intention. The intention here is to kind of do a level set for the rest of the summit, right? So we all kind of get on the same page on, at least one offering of a definition. So here's what we're going to build for the next 20 minutes or so, right? This is going to be the cloud-native platform we build. And you're going to see during the other talks today, a lot of these aspects, a lot of these principles are going to come up in the other talks. Naturally people gravitate towards, oh, hey, here's our offering here, here's our offering there, and that's natural and that's all good. What I'm trying to do is build up a context for us so we're all on the same page. Now, this is a definition that I've been working on for the past decade or so. So I'd like to get it right. I've been refining it. Now, every word is packed with meaning. So, hopefully you've had your first cup of coffee and you're ready to listen. And it'll be the one and only time I'm reading verbatim off the slide. A cloud-native platform is a self-service internal product fit for purpose to accelerate releases that get quality features, fixes, and security patches into production reliably. It's an opinionated composition reliant on an evolving mix of culture, product management, security, automation, the foundational technology, data, observability, developer experience, and support to be successful. These are the principles. Everything that dev, sec, ops, and test do on the platform is in service of getting releases out to end users and getting feedback. The value is increased efficiency, reduced risk, and accelerated innovation. So there it is. It's a mouthful. I get it. But we're going to unpack it during the rest of the presentation. I do want to point out a couple pieces here. We've got this one user group, dev, sec, ops, and test. Those are our engineers who are building workloads on top of the platform. They're the users of the platform, right? But I really don't want to lose sight of our end users, the people we're actually delivering the value to, But in terms of a platform, our user community are the engineers and the teams actually building those workloads. Okay, so the principles and the practices that support those principles for building a cloud-native platform. Let's start with the people who actually build it, right? You can't say enough about the people you work with. It's so important. And you really want to develop a good culture, maybe a good engineering culture to be a little more specific, right? And naturally, communication is key. It's key in all aspects of life, right? Like, it's obvious, I suppose. But it bears repeating because, honestly, part of building and running one of these things is repetition. You kind of got to constantly communicate out the things that your platform can do, the value it has to your user community, all those engineers. You need a cross-functional team to develop it. You want to have all the skills on your team able to deliver features. And I know it's a tight job market, and maybe you can't have all those skills all the time on your team, so you might kind of tactically bring people in. But generally, you want all the people that you need to get things done. You want to focus on your ways of working for your engineering culture. This spans from whether you're doing Agile, Scrum, Kanban, what have you, to remote working. How do we work remotely? Spend some time thinking about that, actually being explicit about how you work remotely, all the way to the really technical nitty-gritty bits. What's our branching strategy? What's our code review strategy? How do we agree on what good code is? Really important stuff to bring together. Learning, the cloud-native ecosystem, super fast-paced, right? Things are coming out all the time. It's really hot. So you really want to, if you can, give your people time to deliberately learn, to focus on learning, not just the kind of some of the crazy on-the-job learning that we all do from time to time as we get new stuff thrown at us. And so what you're doing is trying to build like some of that psychological safety into your team so people feel free to do their best work, right? And it's a matter of building up some empathy for people within your platform team, so you understand each other very well, but also empathy in the wider engineering community of your organization or enterprise. So the teams understand you, they understand what you're feeling, you understand what the other teams are feeling. And like, no kidding, this is important stuff because when times get tough, when timelines are tight, or there's an incident, or funding is tight, that's when it really pays to understand others' perspectives. And it all culminates in trust, right? Trust that everyone is there to do their best work and deliver something of like enduring value to those end users. Okay, so it was kind of right at the start of the definition, a platform must be managed as a product. And generally, it's an internal product. So you've got a product owner who's kind of defining the backlog and doing all that stuff and working with other teams and the team within. You need to have a vision for your platform. It's not just a bunch of tech you're throwing together, right? And hint, hint, this presentation might be my vision for a cloud-native platform. And you need a roadmap to get there, right? How to actually go from A to B to C and in what order. One that gets often missed is actually having a business case. So you're able to kind of really effectively communicate the value of a cloud-native platform. Because oftentimes, the further you get away from the tech and you're talking to the business, the value of such things isn't necessarily understood. Because you want them to understand you've got a lower total cost of ownership with these kinds of platforms where you can develop a common capability and some shared services and kind of get everyone working on the same page effectively. And ultimately, you also have to understand that you're probably not the only game in town in your organization or your enterprise, right? There's other platforms out there. You're going to have your Oracle, you're going to have your, who knows, maybe you're even running SAP or something like that, or what have you. You're not the only platform in town, so you got to play nice with all the other platforms. Okay, so let's get building, right? And we have to start with security. A platform must be secure. You need to engage with your security team early and often. It just pays massive dividends. Super, super important, right? Every time I've done it, it's just gone really well. It's that old chestnut of, okay, take them along for the journey, because when you get to the end, It's so much better. You've got a much more secure solution. It's that shifting left of engaging security. And then all the practices around, kind of the nuts and bolts of actually securing a platform: authentication, authorization. You want to have good role-based access control. You're following principle of least privilege. All the standards you might have to adhere to, whether they're government or financial or whatever standards you need to adhere to in your industry. Good secrets management. Please make it easy to store secrets securely. Otherwise, they will wind up in the wackiest places. They'll wind up in Confluence pages or whatever documentation you're using. They'll wind up in code. So just make it really easy, a nice smooth path for your engineers to store secrets. Certs are still super easy to get wrong, and you wind up with an expired cert somewhere, so you need good cert management. Understand your attack vectors. Lightning talk yesterday around supply chain attacks. That's can be a really crippling attack vector. You need to understand stuff like that. And ultimately, you're enabling good application security. Automation. Start with automation. Your platform needs to be automated. It's so easy to get going manually these days, but once, if you get too far down that path building something manually, you'll have, and you've actually delivered it, it's hard to put the genie back in the bottle. So automate, automate, automate. Around the provisioning of your infrastructure, the provisioning of your platform, anything and everything. Automate everything you absolutely can. I know it's not always possible, but that's the gold standard. All your configuration management needs to be automated. And you want to be able to build on-demand environments as much as possible. If you can build out your platform entirely from code on demand, that's great. But the environments running on it, the software development lifecycle environments that you actually run, that host all the applications for your workloads, for your engineers, if you can provide those on demand, it's amazing. Deployment. This is like any other, I consider platforms like any other software product. So you deploy them like you would any other software product. It's just code, right? You release it like you would any other software product. Hopefully, if you can get to a place of kind of continuous deployment if your organization is amenable to such things. Or you might have kind of more, let's say, stringent release management process where you need to adhere to some rules and you just get on with it and release at the cadence that the business is capable of handling. You got to version everything. That's just a table stakes kind of thing. Pipelines to roll everything out. Just like any other software product needs pipelines, your platform needs pipelines. And freaking ship it. I so often see, teams just crippled by analysis paralysis, and they're frozen in place. I just get it out there, ship that code, merge that request, and get working software in the hands of your users, right? Those engineers using the platform. If you're not getting working software in the hands of your users, you are not doing your job. Okay, let's build out the foundation of our cloud-native platform. Typically on some infrastructure, maybe it's cloud infrastructure, maybe it's on-prem infrastructure. It's all good, right? We can build these cloud-native platforms really kind of anywhere, which is really remarkable. I always like the term, cloud-native platforms as distributed systems for deploying distributed systems, right? In this microservices world, we're building distributed systems and we're deploying them on distributed systems. So it's turtles all the way down. Spend some time on networking. I'm an advocate of just enough design, but when it comes to networking, how about just a little bit more design? Because these are design decisions you're gonna have to live with for a very long time, if not forever. It can be extremely gnarly to unpick some of the networking decisions at the very low levels. Okay, let's get to our compute layer. What are we actually doing for compute? Well, honestly, really, you can build platforms out of anything. I always like to say, if you're running a couple VMs and you've got developers deploying to it and testers testing on it and security hardening it, that's a platform. A couple VMs, that's a platform. So whether you know it or not, you're building a platform. But we're at the Cloud Native Summit, and we're really talking about Kubernetes here as our container orchestrator of choice. And it's at the heart of so many systems these days. And it's my container orchestrator of choice as well. So it's a great system, and you can build amazing things from it. The resource grouping model, that's things like AWS accounts, Azure subscriptions, Google projects. Here's where Conway's law starts to come into effect. Your organizational structure informs your resource grouping model, and that starts to inform how you actually build out your platforms. And so now you got Conway's model where the structure of your organization is influencing your architecture, and you need to be really careful because that might not be the best architecture. And just good tagging and labeling so you understand what's out there and you can track it. Now, data is a slightly different one. I say data, a platform should provide data persistence. It's not necessarily a must. I've seen and built platforms that don't actually store data themselves. Like for Kubernetes, I get that etcd is the data store, the distributed data store, and it stores persistent data. I'm talking about the workloads on the platform. May not necessarily need to store data. They could be stateless. But if you do have to store data, just the laundry list of things you might need to be able to support: good old block storage, file storage, object storage, SQL servers, SQL databases of all types. Not only SQL databases, there's a great many distributed databases these days that have the most remarkable properties, but are really quite complicated. But stuff is evolving all the time. Really, really interesting space. Okay, observability has come to the forefront, and your platform must be observable, right? It's really come to the forefront in, say, the past, 5 to 10 years, where people have started to focus on this, and it's become very much a universe of its own, which is really, really pretty cool to see. We've always had to deal with lots of logs, right? It's the fire hose, and we're always ingesting logs, but now we've got this tooling that can help us do that and actually make sense of it, and put structure to it so we can understand what's going on. Tracing, great tool for understanding what's going on and where things have gone wrong, what's taking the time, where the bottlenecks are, and how you can start to alleviate some of those bottlenecks and find the next bottleneck. Good old monitoring. This is your stock standard resource utilization stuff, understanding kind of your performance characteristics, and also how things work under load. And capacity planning is honestly still a thing in a lot of places, if not cost capacity planning. Like I said, you need to understand your performance characteristics, your baseline performance characteristics, what you need to handle, and then being able to handle those great big spikes in terms of load and measurement. So this is one where I like to put measurement in here as well. And here I'm thinking of the metrics, kind of made popular by the Accelerate book, around deployment frequency, lead time for changes, mean time to recovery, and change failure rate, right? Those measurements, those metrics matter as much for your platform as they do for the workloads running on top of it. So good to track and good to understand where you are and where you're going. You need to provide support for your platform, of course. And I always say the best support you can provide for your platform is the support you don't have to provide at all. Just by being production ready and having a really resilient system that can take a bit of a beating before it actually goes down and you incur downtime for yourself or the workloads running on it, right? You got to be able to upgrade. You need a good upgrade story without interrupting any of those workloads that are actually running on you on the platform. General maintenance, there's a whole ton of stuff in here, and it could be very particular to the workloads you're actually running on the platform. But you do need to do regular stuff like backups and security patches, things of that nature. You want to have a good support model around your platform, right? You want to make sure all those pieces, all the pieces here are well taken care of. It can actually be fairly complicated, particularly in multi-vendor environments when you've got numerous people kind of invested in the platform and how it runs. Good old alerting, yep, absolutely necessary. You need to be able to understand when your platform is having problems before your customers do. Or at the very least, the same instant you get the call or the email, you're getting an alert that something's gone wrong. That's kind of table stakes there as well. So when there is a problem, you can handle it. You can handle that incident in a well-structured way. And you can also provide other things like status pages to kind of give an idea of what the health is of your whole platform. Okay, so we finally get to developer experience. Save the best for last. This is a subject really near and dear to my heart. So for a platform, kind of one of the things that you can kind of almost prove out that you've got a good developer experience is that people are able to onboard themselves, right? It's that whole onboarding process. If they can self-service the onboarding process for themselves or their workloads, that's really good. You're in a really good spot. Tough to do, especially when you're building out a platform for the first time for a new user community. So some hand-holding is certainly warranted. Just kind of that user education that you need to go through initially to kind of start communicating out all the knowledge that everyone needs to build and run their workloads on your platform. Because you're trying to provide a smooth path, right? You're always trying to provide a smooth path, so you're constantly smoothing it out so that people can get on board that much easier and their workloads run that much smoother. I like to term pipelines as the primary interface to your platform. So if you've worked with things of this nature before, you'll understand that, what's the thing that's kind of most running on the platform all the time, that's grinding away, hitting the platform APIs, running unit tests, building environments, deploying workloads, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's the pipelines. The pipelines are constantly running, constantly running. So you want to spend a good amount of time understanding and smoothing the path for your pipelines and getting good patterns for them so that your user community can just adopt those patterns in their pipelines and get their workloads running out seamlessly. And you can provide it with good documentation. I'm a big believer in docs. Got to be strong on docs. And beyond just RTFM, right? You want to provide docs that are tailored to your user community. Remember, the platform is fit for purpose. And then you can provide some of the niceties, like your own APIs on top of your platform, if you've got that kind of level of sophistication on your team, other tooling, CLIs, SDKs, things of that nature, even chat bots. That's kind of next level stuff for a lot of places. And help is a kind of a funny one. If you want to scale your support, if you want to improve your developer experience, you actually, in some sense, need to train your users how to get help. Getting help is an art, and actually asking good questions is an art. And so you can provide some guidance on how developers can, help themselves by helping you. Okay, so we've got a minute to wrap up. I know there's no Q&A, but I wanted to ask one question. What's the one term that I haven't used yet in this whole presentation? And that term is DevOps, right? And I get that DevOps, is these days kind of about a lot of the whiz-bang technology, typically around CI/CD, but you can DevOps anything these days, right? All about the automation, and that's great. That's cool. In fact, I think it's good for the community that they've got that way to kind of get the message out. But for me, DevOps is more a way of working, right? It's about that systemic look at everything. So it's not just the platform, but it's your user community around it, the culture around it, engaging the business, engaging security, engaging all those stakeholders that actually, whether they know it or not, depend deeply on your platform, right? And so it's a holistic way of thinking about these sorts of cloud-native platforms. Thank you very much. That was my principles for a cloud-native platform.